Can you travel to Serbia with diabetes? Yes, but be careful. There's a lot to see in Serbia, including a lot of fascinating historical sites that you may not have heard of before you go. Not to mention the appealing ragtag towns and the accommodating people. Be smart and be careful, and diabetes won't stop you. Hi, I'm still Jeremy. This is my blood sugar report from 9 days in Serbia. First, some stats. Right off the bat, let me confess that Serbia was the worst country on my long European trip as far as blood sugar goes. Not only did I have my highest reading of the 4 months in Serbia, but the average was the highest of any country. In 9 days, I checked my blood sugar 49 times. The readings ranged from 55 to 432. The average was 205. There were no perfect days, and about a third of my readings were in the upper 200s or higher. Stressful situations, poor food choices, and unnecessary worry on my part all contributed to the Serbian badness. Which is not to say that Serbia is a stressful country, or that there's a problem with Serbian food. There isn't, and it isn't. The problem was me, and looking at some of the stories from my time in Serbia, it's obvious that despite the ongoing diabetic blunders, the country is an excellent and somewhat hidden travel destination. Our first stop in Serbia was the capital, Belgrade. If you saw my last video, then you may remember that the last few days in Bosnia and Herzegovina had been excellent blood sugar-wise. This did not carry over into Serbia. For the first couple days, all my blood sugars were the opposite of what you would expect. On the lovely bus ride through the snow-dusted hills of western Serbia, my first 2 readings were 275, and then, despite Humalog, 320. That night, after a large sugary rice meal at a Lebanese restaurant in Belgrade, I was 73. All the next day, taking a day off in the room, I couldn't get my readings down. Insulin just didn't have the effect I expected, until the pizza and beer. After that, I was 113, and then 83 the next morning. You know you're in for a bad time if big plates of rice and pizza are the only things that help your blood sugar. Unfortunately, this mysterious zigzag was just how it was in Serbia. That next day was typical. We wandered around Belgrade, first to the Nikola Tesla Museum, stopping at an outdoor cafe and then shopping for Yugoslavian pressings of Ray Charles records, as you do, and then walking around the well-kept and endlessly fascinating Belgrade Fortress area. Exploring the grounds and the ruins and gazing at the preserved remnants of war as we looked out over the confluence of the Sava and Danube rivers, my blood sugars were fine all day, even a bit low. A day like today is when you can relax and admire the graffiti, which in Serbia was especially admirable. But then that night, after a simple dinner of bread and cevapcici plus salad, I was 245. Annoying. But after an extra shot, I was up to 357, and I had no idea why. After another shot, I was still 261, but I gave up and went to sleep. And so it went. A couple days later, in the northern city of Novi Sad, in the Vojvodina region of Serbia, the same thing. Walking across the Danube, checking out a castle, stopping in at a cool little cafe, and, in the off-season, feeling like the only tourist in the entire city, my blood sugars were excellent all day long. Until after a haircut and then a simple and delicious meal at a local restaurant, when I was nearly 300 again. By the way, in Novi Sad, I stopped into a pharmacy to check out what was available. They didn't have the one-touch strips that I was using, but they did have AccuCheck stuff. So if I ran out of strips, I did have a fallback plan here in Serbia. I always like to stop in at local pharmacies and scope them out, even when I don't need anything yet. Here are 2 examples of stress killing my blood sugar in Serbia. First, our bus from Novi Sad down to the town of Kraljevo seemed less than roadworthy. It was shaking and shuddering, and the driver pulled over and ripped up the floor at one point to check on something. I was sure a replacement bus would come pick us up, but no, he continued, and we shook our way slowly all the way down to Kraljevo. My blood sugar had been bad starting out, but stressing about the unnerving trip made it 340 that evening. Then the next day, the bad day. We had a great afternoon at Studenica Monastery, a UNESCO World Heritage Site a few kilometers into the hills, where we were the only tourists. The 13th century frescoes and architecture were all breathtaking, and it was a real privilege to have such an unencumbered and unrushed view of it all. But we walked the 11 kilometers through the pretty rural hills back to a bus stop, and I let myself get pointlessly paranoid about low blood sugar on this walk. It was actually fine, but I started drinking juice for no real reason. After dinner, I was 323. I took a shot, but before bed, there it was, 432, the highest reading of the entire 4+ months in Europe. And all because I worried about a long walk and its possible effect on me, rather than reality. Lesson: don't worry. Just check and treat and relax. Of course, the good thing about being high is that you come down and you feel better. The next day was a great rebirth in the trip, the other side of high blood sugar. We saw another monastery in Kraljevo. It was sunny and warmer, and the fresh colors and busy activity at this place were heartening. Walking the 5 kilometers back to town, we snapped photos of this guy, and he approached us. At first he seemed to sort of berate us for taking his photo, but then, following my friendly smile, he started smiling and patting me on the shoulder. We all waved goodbye, and it was a warm interaction in the warm afternoon sun. We sat on the porch in our room back in Kraljevo, watching the lovely Serbian sunset. Things always improve. The final stop in Serbia was the town of Zaječar, located down frightening snowy mountain roads that again made me worry and then ruined my blood sugar. It stayed mostly bad, even at another UNESCO World Heritage Site, the ancient Roman ruins of Felix Romuliana, where we were again the only tourists. The food in Zaječar was excellent, based on beans and bread. Ultimately, it was unnecessary stress and worry that sent my blood sugars into a tailspin in Serbia, plus some late lunches and cereal dinners and things like that. But I'm glad we went. I loved what I saw in the country and was surprised by the history and the sights there. I hope to go back someday and see the parts that I missed this time. The lesson of Serbia is relax. Have some popcorn, have a truck burger, sit and watch the waters of the Danube flow by. Experience the sunset, or pop in your souvenir DVD from the guest house owner in Kraljevo. In other words, check, treat, and then just enjoy your surroundings. Thanks for watching. The next destination is Kosovo, where bizarre and dangerous circumstances made us cut our visit short and hightail it down to Macedonia after 3 days. So my blood sugars aren't going to be great there either. Normal food was harder to come by, but at least the worry was more justified in Kosovo. Check out my other videos for travel tips, stories from my own travels, and my experiences as a type 1 diabetic wanderer. See you on the road.